Hey guys, thank you so much for joining me. I am Erica the Hunter's Wife, and I do realize it's been a little bit of time since I've made a video, and that's for good reason. And it's because I took myself on my second sourdough journey, and I just wanted to make sure that I had enough experience with plenty of recipes under my belt so that I had something reputable to share with you. I just felt like it was really ingenuine of me to just go ahead and make a starter and make a loaf of bread and instantly make a video. So at this point in time, I have made the recipes that I will link down below. I've made them, gosh, at least 4 times each. The sandwich loaf I've made, oh goodness, probably like 10 times now at this point because we use so much of that sandwich loaf recipe. So I will be sharing 9 of the lessons that I have learned on this journey, and I hope that they help you. And this is going to be a video that I wished was around when I started this. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you learn something. All right, so my first lesson that I learned is that you really should have a goal in mind of when you start making sourdough, and that goal in mind should be what is the homemade bread products or what are the homemade bread products that I'm making going to replace. So if you buy a lot of bagels or sandwich bread or whatever the case is, really narrow it down to those things that you're going to replace. So for instance, for me, we went through bagels like crazy, sandwich bread, English muffins, and cinnamon rolls. Those are the 4 recipes that I will actually share with you, and those are the ones that I make on rotation. So just keep that in mind. The second lesson to keep in mind is you definitely want to consider the time of year that you start this journey. This is my second time on a sourdough journey. Last year, August of 21, I started making sourdough, and granted, when you create a starter from scratch in the summertime, that is perfect because the wild yeasts love that environment because it's warm and they just multiply like crazy. However, I didn't really consider the fact that I actually would have to be making something with my starter, and it was so hot and I did not want to start my oven. So just keep that in mind. Now, granted, I do have a game plan for the summertime this year, and that is my toaster oven makes my sandwich loaves, so I don't have to heat up my giant range. I can just make a quick thing in my toaster oven, and honestly, worst case scenario, if I have to bake bread on a really hot day, I can plug my toaster oven in outside, and that'd probably be great. So keep that in mind what time of the year you start making a starter. The third lesson to keep in mind is that depending on your starter recipe, so I'm talking like starting from scratch, straight water, straight flour, and growing your yeasts on day 1, the third lesson to be learned is that it might not be mature on day 10 when a lot of the recipes suggest that it will be mature. This time around, I started the starter I am talking about in this video, the one that's working for me. I started it on January 14th of this year, and it took me like 2 weeks before I was confident enough to bake with it. So there's 3 different things I did to help kind of give it a boost. I would stir it more often throughout the day. I put it somewhere warm. I just set it by my wood stove, and then I also changed my feeding ratio a little bit to make it a little more thicker, so I added less water, and that worked really well. The fourth lesson to be learned is that once your starter's mature and you just kind of maintain it, measuring it with a scale or any type of measurement is so overrated. Like, just scoop in some flour, put some water in, and once you kind of can recognize the right consistency, that's all you need. No more scale, no more measuring cups. It's wonderful. The fifth lesson to be learned is you can refrigerate your starter and only feed it once or twice a week, and it's going to work just as well, and you don't have to waste all that flour throughout the week feeding this thing. The sixth lesson to be learned is you don't have to discard. I know a lot of recipes will say discard and feed your starter, but since you already are keeping it in the fridge, like lesson 5, you're not having to constantly discard and feed throughout the week. You can just go ahead and when you're about to feed, take some of that out and make 11 for your recipe of choice, and you're not throwing anything away, and it's a lot more resourceful that way. All right, the 7th lesson to be learned is that you really don't need a whole lot of things to start your sourdough journey. You need essentially 4 things, and that is flour, mason jars, a large mixing bowl, and saran wrap. Those are my essentials. And if you want to be more cost effective, my favorite flour to get is the organic unbleached flour 2-pack at Costco. So if you don't have that, definitely make sure the flour you get is unbleached and preferably organic. The 8th lesson to be learned is that the scheduling for feeding starter, making dough, and rise time does not have to be complicated. When I first began this journey, I was incredibly intimidated and I could not wrap my head around the scheduling. So what I have learned is that you feed your starter around lunchtime, you make your dough around dinner time, and then you bake it the following day, sometime that day. I've noticed you can probably let your dough, depending on the recipe, rise up to 24 hours and it works great. But if you decide you want bread, the day that you decide you want bread, it's not gonna happen. All right, and number 9, last but not least, the 9th lesson to be learned is that if this journey becomes all too cumbersome and tedious, whatever you do, do not throw your mature starter away like I did last summer because it was too hot. Just go ahead and find a recipe on YouTube or I don't know, Google it, whatever, and dehydrate it, because at some point when it's wintertime and it's cold again, you're gonna wanna start this up. And then you're gonna wish that you still had it and you didn't kill it. So keep that in mind. I hope you guys learned a lot from this. I hope it'll help you get started because this really is a rewarding, fulfilling way to feed your family. So thanks so much for watching. Take care.